What if a voice could alter the past, not by changing facts, but by erasing them? In 2007, Xi Jinping gave a speech so dangerous, not even he was allowed to remember it. No footage, no transcript, no official record. But then, it resurfaced. In pieces, in echoes, in places it was never supposed to reach. And now, it might not have been his voice at all. This is the story of a recording too perfect to be real, and too terrifying to be fake. The night that wasn't logged. The room wasn't supposed to exist. Not in official schematics. Not in any satellite image. And yet, on a muggy night in July 2007, Xi Jinping stood in front of a steel door with no plaque, no lock, and no visible hinges. He didn't knock. He simply pressed his hand to the surface. A soft chime. Then silence. Then the door dissolved, sliding silently into the wall like smoke retreating from fire. Inside, 3 men were waiting. No names. Just titles. Minister of Security, Party Archivist, and a man known only by his code, 7 Hong. She stepped in, said nothing, and took the only chair at the far end of the room. The floor beneath him vibrated faintly. The room was built on electromagnetic stabilizers, shielded from surveillance, radio interference, and even internal recording devices. No one outside would know this conversation ever happened. Except it did. And something from that night leaked. The purpose of the meeting was never made public. Not even among the Politburo. But 3 days later, she delivered a short, 12-minute speech behind closed doors to the Committee of Provincial Governance. That's where the timeline fractures. There's no video of that speech. No transcript. Not even a verified list of attendees. The only remaining evidence is an internal dispatch that references the event indirectly. Strategic redirection confirmed. Approval of Initiative Red Water granted by acting authority. No signature. No date. No follow-up. Years later, when questioned about that week, she responded with a strangely specific denial. No speech was delivered. I recall no such event. The committee did not convene. But here's the twist. 3 separate sources, each from different provinces, submitted identical reports afterward. Same phrases. Same structural changes. Same reference to an initiative that didn't exist before that week. And then they vanished. One resigned. One moved abroad. One died of sudden cardiac arrest. But all 3 left something behind. A set of notes. Almost identical. All labeled. The speech that wasn't logged. It included fragments. Not a script, more like pieces of a puzzle. If the soul of a nation must be engineered, let it begin with silence. Noise is the enemy of order. What cannot be said must be designed. No name, no date, just handwriting. The same handwriting. A decade later, an analyst named Fong Li discovered something peculiar while digitizing old personnel records. The same phrase from those notes appeared in a blacklisted academic paper written in 1993. Title: Neurolinguistic Inversion and Mass Cognition. Author: H. Yuan. The conclusion of the paper reads: when memory is engineered, truth becomes optional. Fong traced the author through old university archives, only to find he'd been recruited into the Central Party Translation Bureau in 1997. After that, he ceased to exist. What Fong didn't expect was that her access logs would be flagged. That night, her clearance was revoked. Her ID expired in the system. Her apartment was emptied by morning. Only one file survived on her offline hard drive. A single audio clip, 12 minutes long. Marked simply, redwater.wave. The voice. Deep. Familiar. Distinct. Xi Jinping. But what he said in those 12 minutes will never be officially acknowledged. Because even Xi himself no longer remembers saying it. The voice that reappeared in fragments. It started with a malfunction. In a provincial government building in Chongqing, A conference room AV system glitched during a monthly party briefing. The video stalled, but the audio kept playing. A 12-minute segment. Scratchy, low fidelity, laced with static. Xi's voice. But it wasn't part of the scheduled agenda. Attendees sat frozen. Some assumed it was a system error, a misplaced file from a previous meeting. Others, those who'd been around longer, knew better. Their eyes widened. Faces went pale. The technician killed the feed immediately. But a junior secretary in the back, new to the post, unaware of the danger, had recorded the entire feed on her phone. That night, she uploaded it to a private server. Titled it simply, Test File, Unknown Feed. It took exactly 36 minutes before her account was deleted. She was never seen again. The file, however, had already been copied twice. It began circulating through encrypted circles. Data forensic specialists, linguists, and former party members confirmed it matched the vocal fingerprint of Xi Jinping. Pitch, cadence, breathing pattern, all identical to state-verified samples. But what disturbed analysts most wasn't the authenticity. It was the content. The speaker spoke not in policy, but in code. Psychological directives. Phrases like, behavior precedes belief. Memory is a weapon. Doubt is a malfunction of signal integrity. It wasn't a speech. It was a set of instructions. One AI linguist suggested it resembled the structure of early neural programming routines, techniques designed to overwrite memory through repetitive, subliminal phrasing. A pattern emerged. The same audio clip began popping up in corrupted archive servers across the country. Not complete. Just fragments. 12 seconds here. 2 minutes there. But always in systems connected to the Ministry of Culture. That ministry had one internal division the public never saw, the Acoustic Integrity Bureau. No official records of its founding. No director ever named. But it had one task: to detect and neutralize unsanctioned auditory influence. One operative defected in 2022 and revealed that the redwater.wave file had been classified as Category Theta, meaning cognitively hazardous to executive function. The file was believed to be a test, not of technology, but of loyalty. And the most chilling part, according to the defector's final report, Xi Jinping was not the originator of the file. He was the first subject, the architect who spoke in echoes. For years, the name H. Yuan was just a footnote in internal party databases. A marginal figure, a scholar turned bureaucrat, then vanished. But after the redwater.wave incident, his legacy began surfacing like fragments of a long-buried transmission. The breakthrough came not from an intelligence unit or security bureau, but from a linguistics lab in Singapore. A doctoral student named Mei Han was running comparative analyses on speech patterns in East Asian leaders. She came across an obscure vocal anomaly, a rare cadence structure found only in the redwater.wave clip and a 1996 propaganda training tape from a then-unknown consultant. That consultant, Yuan H. The tape had been buried under misfiled archives, labeled as agricultural training material. But the content had nothing to do with crops. Instead, it outlined a radical framework: ideological rewriting via tonal entrancement. Yuan proposed that political belief could be altered by embedding subconscious triggers in national broadcasts. Not words, but tone, rhythm, silence. It was fringe theory back then. Today, it looked prophetic. The more Mei dug, the more she uncovered. In a hidden annex of Beijing's University of Mass Cognition, she found Yuan's private research logs, preserved only on microfiche. One entry stood out. Phase 3. If memory becomes audible, it can be rewritten in layers. He'd mapped the brain's reaction to repeated tonal exposure, how emotional memory and factual recall could be scrambled. It wasn't hypnosis. It was linguistic interference. But Yuan didn't stop at theory. He'd tested it. Subject, unnamed. Condition, mid-level party cadre. Result, total loss of recall regarding speech participation. Timestamp, July 2007. May froze. That date. The same week as Xi's speech. She traced the session log to a facility run under the codename Echo Prism. It was decommissioned in 2009. Officially, it never existed. Unofficially, it was ground zero for memory architecture. Inside Echo Prism's blueprints, which May accessed through leaked municipal planning records, was a chamber marked only with an X. The same dimensions, layout, and electromagnetic isolation as the room from Xi's visit. May submitted her findings anonymously to an international conference on cognitive warfare. The paper made it halfway through peer review before being pulled. Then Xi disappeared. But before she vanished, she left behind an encrypted file. It held a full reconstruction of Yuan's Phase 3 protocol, titled Memory Echo Reindexing, a Framework for Obedience. Included in the appendix was a spectral analysis of the red water wave clip. One segment contained a black-masked frequency pulse. When reversed, it revealed a whisper. One word. Repeat. Not a command. A signature. The same word Yuan used to mark his early prototypes. That confirmed it. Yuan wasn't just the architect. He was the echo inside the voice. The frame that wasn't a lie. In late 2023, a classified briefing was leaked to the European Digital Intelligence Council. The briefing claimed a disturbing possibility, that the red water wave clip wasn't just a psychological weapon. It might have been a frame job. But not against Xi. Against China itself. The theory was simple. If one could plant a convincing enough piece of audio evidence suggesting cognitive manipulation at the top of a superpower, it could fracture trust in that regime from the inside out. The report was vague on origin but referenced what it called Operation Curtain Echo, a covert project traced back to a now-defunct NATO black site in southern Norway. The facility specialized in synthetic voice replication. The Council traced the development of a vocal synthesis tool designed to replicate high-value targets with 99.6% fidelity. The algorithm had one known test subject, a political leader from East Asia. The code name used, Obsidian. Linguists, however, pointed out a flaw. Even perfect audio mimics fail under spectral scrutiny. And Redwater wave passed every test, with one exception. A harmonic imprint buried at 7.2 kHz. This frequency was unique to a model of microphone manufactured exclusively for the Zongnanhai internal broadcast system. In other words, the recording wasn't from outside. It had to be made inside the compound. Still, the disinformation theory didn't die. Instead, it pivoted. Perhaps it wasn't foreign. Perhaps it was internal, a power struggle within the party itself. That's when the frame theory evolved. A document surfaced on the dark web titled Mandate Zero. It described a plot orchestrated by a rival faction aiming to discredit Xi before the 20th Party Congress. Their plan? Use Redwater wave as both a truth and a trap. If the speech was real, it proved Xi had dabbled in dangerous mind control tactics. If it was fake, it meant someone within had mastered the technology to destroy him. Either way, trust eroded. The document included internal memos, metadata from the editing software, and most damningly, a fragment of an earlier draft of the audio file with timestamps from an internal Zongnanhai editing terminal. Xi's reaction, once he learned of the leak, was immediate. 25 staff members reassigned. 13 arrested. 2 publicly denounced. But the file wasn't destroyed. In fact, it was archived. In a vault known as the listening room. A place where the party stores not just secrets, but ideas too dangerous to erase. Because erasing them would prove they were real. The silence that couldn't be erased. Zongnanhai, 2:14 a.m. Xi Jinping stood alone in the listening room. Rows of secure vaults surrounded him, each labeled in code, each holding something the public would never know existed. In the farthest row, behind triple-locked steel and biometric scanners, was a single drive. Redwater wave. He stared at the label for several minutes, not moving. The room was silent, yet he heard something. A hum. A resonance. Familiar. Disorienting. He inserted the drive. A single prompt appeared. Would you like to listen again? His finger hovered. Then pressed yes. 12 minutes. As the audio played, his expression never changed. But something in his eyes shifted. Recognition, regret, or nothing at all. Then, an unexpected whisper at the end. You were never meant to forget. The whisper wasn't his voice. It was Yuan's. She stepped back. The chair creaked behind him. The floor vibrated faintly, just like in that hidden room from years ago. He opened a drawer beneath the playback console. Inside was a sealed folder titled, Mandate Xi Zero. He read the first page, then lit a match. Flame swallowed the paper slowly, the ashes curling upward like memory itself unraveling. But not everything burns. Because somewhere, across the border in Mongolia, a former intelligence officer watched the same clip, lips trembling. And in a university in Canada, a postdoc wrote a thesis linking tone patterns in state propaganda to stress markers in public behavior. And in a dark forum in Belarus, someone posted a message. The voice is real. But it wasn't his. The final twist. That whisper, the one Yuan left embedded in the file, had a twin. Another version of redwater.wave was found, slightly altered. And this time, the final line was different. You were never meant to remember. Somewhere along the chain, the message had been rewritten. Not once, but twice. Who was the author? Who was the echo? And who was listening now? So, what do you believe? Was the voice real? Or a perfectly crafted illusion meant to test the edge of power and memory? In a system built on silence, who decides which voice is remembered and which one never existed at all? The truth might be buried, but echoes never die. If stories like this intrigue you, uncover more with us. Brain subscribe to Hidden Xi, because sometimes the most important things are the ones they try to erase.